Welcome to our Pagnet and Smart Valor AMA session. Thank you for asking so many questions. My name is Ivan Anastassov. I'm head of business development of Smart Valor. Unfortunately, Olga Feldmeier couldn't join today because she had a very important meeting, but I'm happy to moderate the session and to answer the questions relating to Smart Valor. So, before we start with the AMA session, guys, you have to keep in mind that everything which we're talking is not an investment advice. So obviously we too are biased. I have quite a lot of pegs as well. I bought them on several exchanges even before we got listed on Smart Valor. And you guys need to do your own research before you buy the tokens. So if you, in any case, lose money, it's not our fault, it's your fault. Do your own research. You can go to www.smartvalor.com. On the news section, you have a fact sheet about what Pagnet is. So it's definitely good to read about it, to read about the advantages. And yeah, I think enough disclaimer for now. I'm happy to welcome David Johnston, who is one of the leading figures of Pagnet. And now I give the word to you. Can you please explain what your involvement in Pagnet is, and probably in like 2-3 sentences what Pagnet is?
Sure. Thanks, Ivan. Hey, everybody. So David Johnston, I've been in crypto for a long time, since like 2012, and I've really had the luck and the pleasure to be able to be involved in a lot of the early protocols. And so I try to get involved when something's in the white paper stage. So I saw when the developers of Pagnet first proposed it, sort of a mix of people from the Ethereum and the Factum community talking about decentralized oracles and how we could use them for synthetic type pegged assets on the blockchain. And that got me really excited because I've been interested in that topic for a long, long time. I supported Mastercoin, the first ever token sale back in 2013, because they wanted to put assets on the blockchain. So it's been a long journey, and I've been it's been fun I got to be one of the first miners of Pagnet. I've written a lot of articles about it. As you guys may know, there's no formal Pagnet team. It's fully decentralized. There's no foundation or company. There was no ICO. So it's been really cool to see it sort of organically emerge. And yeah, I just try to keep up with the developers and then tell the community about what's happening, what's coming, and explain sort of and think through the economics of how the system works. So anyway, enthusiast, miner, whatever title you want to give it, but it's been fun to work with the community on this project.
Amazing. Good. Thank you for the intro. Let's start with the first question. You guys recently announced Pagnet 2.0. Can you briefly summarize the differences and advantages from Pagnet 1 to Pagnet 2?
Sure.
1.0 to 2.0.
Yeah, of course. So there's effectively two big updates. There's the addition of staking. So, Pagnet has been all mining up to this point, which has been great. I really believe in proof of work, but I think expanding the group of people that can participate to anybody holding P assets, anybody holding PEG, is just going to continue to grow the network effect. So staking goes live with Pagnet 2.0. Which has an estimated time of arrival for July 29th. So we're only a few weeks out from the activation hype that the developers have picked for it to go live. So these will be PEG rewarded to people holding P assets and people staking PEG. So, that's a big update. It really sort of changes the economics and dynamics of the system, because all of a sudden there's an incentive to participate in the system and provide liquidity and arbitrage, not just to mine the oracle prices. The other big thing coming is a bunch of improvements to the way that the oracles are done. And so effectively, this will add stakers providing oracle prices, not just miners. So you have even more of a robust, sort of approach where the data is coming from. And then just all sorts of improvements around how the data is gathered and the median is figured out and things like that. So just in a system where the oracles determine the price of everything, the system is only as strong as those decentralized oracles. So the community spent a lot of time improving those.
Okay, basically, like in summary, improved oracles and also improved incentives through staking as well to hold assets and to hold peg as well. So let me jump into the next question. So the next question is, how will the staking work? So do you have to own a minimum number of tokens? Is it different between staking peg or peg assets? Do you have to run a node? And if yes, how does exactly this work? What are the conditions and also the expected rewards? So quite a long question.
All good. So yes, both P assets and PEG can be staked. The rewards for P assets are once per day. So it's every 144 blocks. Everybody with a balance of P assets is going to get part of that staking reward. So there are 4,500 PEG per block set aside for the P assets. And effectively, you don't have to do anything as far as running software or taking some action in order to earn the rewards when it comes to P assets. Effectively, you already took the action by buying P assets. And really, this is to incentivize people to grab cheap P assets whenever they see them on the market. You know, if somebody's willing to sell PUSD for 50 cents, grab it off the market, and now you're getting effectively a bigger reward per dollar for having those P assets. So it's really designed as a way to incentivize people to grab up cheap P assets and do that arbitrage. Now, when it comes to the PEG, there's a little more effort that's required because the PEG stakers are reporting Oracle prices. So it's almost like running a miner. You have to be reporting the prices every 10 minutes. You have to be running a node. You need to be submitting entry credits, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a little more work on that side, but it's really important effectively for improving the oracles in the system. And, you know, really you get a reward every block in the case of PEG staking, right? So there's more regularity around that. And effectively what people are doing is they're providing their liquidity to the network, right? By holding and buying more PEG, they're supporting the price of those PEG, and then that supports the price of the arbitrage and the mining reward and everything else going on.
Okay, and if you stake P assets, you get PEG as far as I understood. This is correct?
Mm-hmm. That's right. So 4,500 PEG per block for the P asset staking and 4,500 PEG per block for the PEG staking.
Okay, good. So like you said, you have to run basically a node if you stake kind of if you stake Pagnet. So do you have to ensure 100% uptime? Do you have like any downtime penalties? So what are the exact conditions? Do you get and what are the expected rewards per like PEG? Or can you not say that yet?
Well, we can include a link, but I created a whole staking model that estimates the rewards for the P assets and for the PEG. So we can include a link to that here. But
sure.
Effectively, you know, it estimates, depending on the price of PEG, you know, sort of 15 to 20% annual reward for the PEG staking, and probably a 7 to 10% reward for the P asset staking. But that entirely depends on the price of PEG. If it's price is lower, that'll be lower. If the price is higher, that'll be higher. When it comes to uptime, since the reward for PEG staking is every block, if you're not up every block, you may be missing those rewards for the blocks that you're not reporting prices and you're not taking part in that staking of that block, if you will. And in this case, you know, because Pagnet uses Ethereum, uses Factom for the consensus of the transactions, this is around building consensus of the prices. And so that's what people are being rewarded for. It's not like they're confirming transactions, they're reporting prices, and that's what they're rewarded for. Now, on the question of minimums, there's no minimum. You could have $1 of PUSD on the P asset side and get a reward. But because the PEG stakers have to report the Oracle prices, you can't have tens of thousands of people flooding the network with that data. So the developers, at least to start, have said, okay, the top 100 PEG addresses can report those oracles. So at current prices, you need about 1 Bitcoin worth of peg in order to do the peg staking. Call it 7 or 8 million pegs, something in that range. If you look at the rich list on the Explorer, you can see, the 100th address has like 7 million peg. So that gives you a general idea. So it's not overly expensive. You don't need millions of dollars, but you need at least about a Bitcoin worth of peg in order to participate in the peg staking. And so hopefully we'll also see that expanded over time. I think that developers are being conservative and saying, we know this will work with the top 100. We can probably expand it, but let's start there for this first iteration.
Perfect. So we will put the link in the description. So what you mentioned about the staking. And now we're happy to move to the next question, which is still around the same topic. Why did you decide to include staking at all? Are you planning to move towards proof of stake protocol like completely and remove the miners, or are you trying to run both next to each other for a longer period of time?
I really believe in a hybrid system. I think there are strengths and weaknesses with both proof of work and with proof of stake. So proof of stake, often, it gets concentrated over time in wallets and exchanges, and that's fine, but you don't want it to be the only source of data. In case you have an exchange or wallet that's a bad actor, you don't want somebody to take the system off the rails as a single point of failure. So having that proof of work, providing oracles as well, keeps it balanced, right? And you can have the same problem on the miner side, right? You can have somebody that has 51% of the hash power and tries to push the prices the other way. So I think having a balance between that proof of work and that proof of stake is really important, because it distributes the players that are reporting those prices. It becomes harder and harder for somebody to try to mess with the system. And to mess with the system, they need all this hash power and own a majority of the peg. Then why wouldn't they be helping the peg system? All of their value is in the peg system, right? So I believe in alignment of economics, right? That's why Bitcoin works. That's why Ethereum works, is because people are incentivized to make ETH and BTC more valuable, because that's where they're spending all their money, is getting ETH or BTC. So I think once you align those economics, the problems go away. But I think it'll be a hybrid long term. I never see mining going away. I don't see proof of stake taking over because they offer different advantages, right? So I think we can strike a really interesting balance between the two. Always permissionlessly, anybody can mine and earn the tokens, and always permissionlessly, anybody can own P assets or stake peg and participate in that way. And that's great. That's part of what made Ethereum so successful, is, talking to Vitalik in those early days, he was thinking mostly about the mining stuff. And I said, we have to be able to reward people who can provide capital. We have to reward people that can provide developer work, right? And there's a dev reward that's being added as part of Pagnet 2.0 as well, which I'm really excited about. So if you can bring those different communities together, the project gets a lot stronger.
Exactly. Great. So another advantage, which I think Pagnet 1.0 doesn't have yet, the developer rewards, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's getting added. That'll be 2,000 peg per block going forward. And the really cool thing is, instead of a bureaucracy or a bunch of voting or a foundation, every peg staker will be able to direct where those rewards go. So there'll be a default list of, here's an address to donate to wallet work or Explorer work or Pagnet improvements, or whatever you're passionate about. You could go in, change those addresses and say, what's really important is wallets. And, I'm going to put all of my, staking reward directed for the protocol towards that. So people can take that decision individually, as opposed to creating a lot of politics.
Okay, that's great. So that means that you will have a kind of a governance system as well in the Pagnet ecosystem, right? Similar like Compound is implementing it with their governance token.
A really, really decentralized one, right? Not governance in the sense that we all have to come to the same decisions, but that we can all make individual decisions, which I think is really cool. Effectively, it's the config file in the node that the peg stakers are running, they can look at those addresses and define and decide what they want to support as far as Pagnet development. So that keeps it really open. Foundations can be useful, but they also have a lot of challenges, right? People have different priorities and different interests, and getting them aligned can create a lot of toxicity in politics. So I think avoiding that is a smart move by the community.
Okay, so only the stakers will be able to vote. Is this correct? The miners will not have any vote.
Well, the miners run the software, and so effectively they have a veto on the way that the upgrades happen. So there's a balance there. And so all of these upgrades, have been a conversation openly with the miners and the community to say, yeah, we get it. We need more network effect. Let's reward people with proof of stake. We need more development work. Let's add a developer reward. So, the miners play a big role, but yes, the peg stakers are the most obviously aligned long-term with the development of peg, given they're holding their value in peg tokens itself, right? So it sort of seemed natural that they would be the ones directing the development rewards. And of course, the developers can work on whatever they find compelling. It's not like the peg stakers can force them to develop a certain feature, but they can say, out of all the ideas and proposals, I'm sending a signal that this is something that's important to me.
Okay, sounds interesting. I really like that. Looking forward. The next question is towards Smart Valor. So will Smart Valor offer staking as a service for Pagnet ERC20 tokens? And when will this be possible? So yeah, obviously staking works only on the factoid tokens for now, and like the ERC20 tokens cannot be used for staking. And also for the people who do not want to have one Bitcoin investment, because for some people it's quite a lot of money, but they still want to get part of the staking rewards. Obviously, for that reason, Smart Valor is very interested to be one of the first, if not the first, exchange offering staking as a service. We're in close discussion with David and the team. Actually, just right before the interview, we had the discussion on Signal. So it looks pretty good that we're one of the first, if not the first, hopefully from one of the first days to offer staking as a service for all our users.
That's awesome.
Good, because we want to support obviously the whole ecosystem, and we want to also enable democratization of wealth, so that not only the rich people, but everyone can stake if they want to stake. Good. So next question is, you are always compared to synthetics. So the next question is around that. How do you see synthetics as a competitor? What's your advantage compared to synthetics, and what other competitors do you see compared to synthetics?
Sure. I think synthetics is a great project. I would say there's a lot of differences though. What Pagnet is doing is fully decentralized, right? There's no off switches, there's no pausing the markets, there's no, aspects like that. And it's a really fundamentally different approach, right? Synthetics is based on collateralizing, right? I've got some amount of ETH or some amount of synth in an account, and I'm locking that up, and using that to create this asset. Where Pagnet is based on consensus around Oracle prices, right? It's much closer to the Bitcoin model, where it's not about a reserve, it's not about collateral. Bitcoin has neither, but it has a really strong consensus mechanism around the transactions and the way that the system works. So Pagnet's really taking that more decentralized approach. I'd say one of the big advantages is price. So a tenth of a penny to do the conversions on Pagnet is really, really cheap. We're seeing thousands of conversions a day, tens of millions of dollars in Pagnet conversions. I think we just crossed $4 billion has been converted from P assets to other P assets inside the Pagnet system since launch, which is a huge milestone and really sort of a testament to how cheap and easy it is to do. So, more power to what they're doing. I think Pagnet is just taking a different approach. And, I think there's trillions of dollars of wealth that we have to move from the legacy financial system onto blockchains. There's a lot of room for a lot of different approaches. And depending on what you're doing, if you're, more of a regulated institution, you're going to use a Libra or something more regulated. If you're a person that doesn't, live in a big developed country, have access to a bunch of regulated finance, DeFi and, fully decentralized systems are going to be more accessible to you. So I think it depends on the user. So I think there's a lot of room, and we'll see more competitors, I'm sure, emerge. But I really want to stay on that fully decentralized side of things because I think it serves the most people, right? And what we want to do is build bridges into regulated exchanges, into lots of other DeFi projects. I mean, that's how this wins, is connecting together all those systems.
Yeah, sounds great. Is this the reason why you basically choose, or like Pagnet, the developers chose to develop on Factom and not on ETH? Because I mean, like you mentioned the 1/10 of a penny like fees, which is insane. I mean, like if I compare it to synthetics, where I had to pay for a transaction of SUSD to S dash, I had to pay like $3.50 or something like that. And to claim staking rewards, I claimed it yesterday, I had to pay like $12. So it's crazy. So the fees are insane.
Well, and it's just a reflection of the fact that they're only built on Ethereum, right? And that's where I think there's a lot of synergy here, is you don't have to just pick one platform. Factom works on, Pegnet works on Factom, it works on Ethereum, it'll work on more blockchains in the future, and you can use each blockchain for what it's really good for, right? And in case of Ethereum, the tooling and the wallets and tokenization is great, right? And you get really broad reach, but it's not designed as a data protocol. It's not going to be a 1/10 of a penny, right, to put data like Pegnet onto Ethereum. So you need a second layer solution like Factom. Factom anchors into Ethereum, it anchors into Bitcoin. It is a second layer blockchain, and that's why it's able to be so cheap, is it's aggregating all that data and every block anchoring it to these major public chains. So I think those are really complementary. And that's part of why, the developers went down that route, is they said, well, people are going to be publishing a lot of prices every block forever. Like, we can't ask them to pay $1 a transaction to put that data in there, or nobody's going to mine, right? So I think it's really great that they've sort of brought those two ecosystems together.
Okay, great. But as I heard, you're planning to do kind of like a bridge between ERC20 and the packs, so that if you buy an ERC20 version of the token, you can still exchange it on pTrader, for example. So that's something which you're planning, right?
Absolutely. So I donate to a lot of the different wallet developers. The guy that has developed pTrader has just been great about connecting in TradingView and other tools and other exchanges, so people can run bots and scripts and move in between the Pegnet world and the exchange world, which is really great. And that's sort of just an extension of that, is having a tool where you can handle both the factoid version, the Ethereum version, move between exchanges that handle both. So I expect he'll be spending more time on that probably after Pegnet 2.0 launches. He's one of the developers that's working on the big upgrade. So yeah, that'll be really exciting, because then you can sort of get the advantages of both systems and make it easy to move from one to the other.
Yeah, I think that's great. Maybe in the future, the usability will be that easy that people don't know what kind of blockchain is actually in the background. They just buy it on exchange, move it to pTrader, trade there. They don't know what that is exchanged actually from ERC20 to the pack version. If they move it to another exchange which has a like EOS based token, we never know. Then this might even happen automatically. So let's see what will happen in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, I wrote an entire article about easy on-ramps and exits for Pegnet. And that's effectively what I describe, is the developers of the wallets moving towards a system where they take all that complexity out of the system for users, and the user just pushes the button, right? They want to go from P assets to Peg. They don't care if it was a trade on an exchange that got them there, or if it was a conversion inside the network. The wallet should just look at what's the best execution and do it for the user, right? So yeah, that's very much what I want to see in the coming months. So,
Perfect. Let's put the article as well in the description.
sure.
Perfect. Then let's go to the next question, which is towards Smart Valor. So why did you decide to list Pagnet as second DeFi project, and what do you like about the project? Well, basically, as we discussed, it's an amazing project. The technology is great. It has some huge advantages compared to its competitors, and I think comparing Pagnet to Synthetics is quite a good compliment, because if you look at the market cap at Pagnet, it's still around 1 digit million, whereas Synthetics is around three digit million of market cap. So you can still have 100x if you achieve the same results with Synthetics, which I believe it's definitely possible when looking at the team and the speed of development which you guys are doing. And obviously, we would like, similar like you said, you want to be involved into projects early on, white paper stage. Obviously, Pagnet is much further away than white paper stage. It has a product which works already, which people are using, which had already like $4 billion of conversions. So we see Pagnet as right on the edge before like really getting mainstream, and we want our users to be able to jump into early stage projects as well, because usually other exchanges only list projects which are really big, and usually then it's too late. The biggest gains are made if you're very early on in a certain project. So kind of the VC style of approach, and that's why we really like listing such an early stage project. And we received quite a lot of very positive feedback from our community. And I guess we're going to continue with this approach of listing the top projects from the CoinMarketCap and listing the next big things like Pagnet. Good. So next question is, there are many DeFi projects coming out. What is the main strong point against all the others, not only Synthetics?
So there's a lot of DeFi projects, but most of them are using a similar approach. Most of them are using reserves, or most of them are using collateral. As far as I'm aware, Pegnet was the first to use decentralized oracles, and a lot of the decentralized oracle projects are just doing that, right? They're just providing decentralized oracles to others. But in the case of Pegnet, it built decentralized oracles so it could do pegged assets, right? Today there are 42 pegged assets on Pegnet, and I think it goes to 62 P assets and peg when it comes to 2.0. So adding more fiat currencies, adding more cryptos like Algorand and Hedera and other upcoming projects are all getting added to the system. And so as the system gets bigger and really can serve more and more of those cryptos and fiat use cases, Pegnet functions because it's a network, right? It's not just a stable coin, right? It's not just PUSD, and it's just not synthetics of crypto. It's got a really broad base. And I think that's important for the economics of a consensus system and really how value flows in and out. People don't have to leave the system to go from crypto to fiat, or go from fiat to crypto, or crypto to gold, right? They can move into those different asset classes and they're still inside the Pegnet. And so and my hope is that effectively more and more of the world's assets can be reflected on this platform, and it makes it really sticky. Because why do I need to leave? Well, I can send fiat, I can send crypto, I can convert in between those values very quickly for a tiny cost of a tenth of a penny. That's really attractive. So, there's a lot of great DeFi projects out there, and for Pegnet, the goal is to connect into as many of them as possible. So I'd love to see, PUSD or PBTC used as collateral on other lending protocols. And, there's so many aspects of DeFi, from the lending to the staking, where people are earning yield. And so as soon as the staking goes live in Pegnet 2.0, imagine you can now get a reward for holding exposure to Bitcoin that you couldn't get before, right? Just holding BTC, without lending it out to somebody, you weren't getting a reward. right? All of a sudden you can stake those favorite assets that you have, whether it's ETH or BTC or dollars or even gold, and get a reward. So I think that's really game changing, is letting everybody, no matter what their preference is for asset, participate in that platform.
Okay, sounds good. Are you planning to run the kind of inflation for an infinitive time, or are you planning to move towards lending and borrowing setup like Compound is doing, like in the near future?
Right now, the Pagnet rewards are really set up to be fixed in that 20,000 peg per block, right? That 9,000 to miners, that 9,000 to stakers, and that 2,000 to developers. So that 20,000 peg per block is fixed. It just goes into the future. I like the idea of systems where you have, sort of halvenings and things like that. The trouble is then you end up having to charge more fees over time, because as the block reward declines, then your fees have to rise. We see that with BTC. And so I personally, and this is, I think, the way the community has felt, is we'd rather see those tiny transactions be maintained, always be a tenth of a penny, versus, making the block reward go down over time. Because don't forget, the only way people are getting P assets is by burning peg. So that's another update in Pagnet 2.0. For the bootstrapping phase, you could burn factoids or you could burn peg. The factoid gateway is going away, so you could only burn peg to make P assets. So you've got a declining supply already. I think 400 million peg have been burned since the start. So it used to be like 2.1 billion. Now there's like 1.8, right? Including a little bit of growth for the block rewards. So you've actually already seen deflation in the system because of all the peg burning. So it'll be interesting to see the equilibrium that comes to, but I think the Pagnet community is very much on the low fee side and keeping that, versus worrying too much about the inflation, given the inflation has already been removed from the system thanks to the burning.
Yeah, I think you wrote an article about that as well, right?
I certainly did.
Yeah. So let's add that to the comment section as well, so that you guys have some more information about what Pagnet is and the total market supply. Good. So the next thing is, it seems that there are not many marketing activities on Pagnet made yet. What is your marketing plan for more adoption in the future?
Well, it's really community driven, right? So there's no formal marketing team or formal foundation. So it's, I think, really something that the community has wanted to see Pagnet 2.0 go live, because so many of the things you would want to say in the marketing are driven around that. You're into BTC, come stake it on Pagnet, right? As soon as 2.0 goes live. So I think there's been a lot of, let's get 2.0 live, and so many of the resources and focus of the developers and the different community members have been focused in on that. And now it's like, oh, wow, we've got an activation height. We know what day it's going to happen. So let's start gearing up to talk more about it. Do more AMAs, do more public facing stuff. So there's a lot of interest by the community to do that. And it's up to the community. Now that there'll be the developer reward, they can direct some of that developer reward to, assisting, media outlets and other people to understand Pagnet and talk about it, write about it, produce content. So the developer reward is what the community makes it. I mean, it's not, only about wallets and explorers. It's about, feeding sort of all the, technical and community support that Pagnet needs in order to succeed. So that incentive goes live with Pagnet 2.0. So then I think we'll sort of see people unleash all of their ideas about ways to do that.
So the developer reward can not only go to developers, it can go to marketing agencies as well, right?
It could, though I think a lot of the marketing agencies are used to some sort of like monthly contract or something like that. And here it's a decentralized community. So I think it's probably going to be more organic, where people say, oh, we should, be on this platform. And, oh, that takes a certain amount of resources. Hey, everybody, point some resources towards this, right? Let's get that unlocked for the community. So, I think it'll be less the traditional model of like a PR agency and more like providing resources for what the community wants to see done. That may be sponsoring different things, that may be, getting on certain website listings, so there's a ton of stuff that can be done on that front, but we'll leave it up to the creativity of the community. There's no marketing team at Bitcoin, but people talk about Bitcoin because they have Bitcoin, because they're interested in the technology, because they love the economics. There's all these reasons. And I think we have a very similar sort of motive here in Pagnet. It's less hype and it's less, sort of traditional marketing agency stuff, but it's much more organic. And I think that's actually what's sustainable.
Okay, great. I mean, I was thinking more maybe something like, I don't know if you know at Dash, they have Dash News, which is also supported by the DAO. So this could be something for like Pagnet News, which where journalists write about different things and get some PAG rewards for that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I know a couple of people in the community have been proposing something similar to that, but now you'll finally have the incentive and the resources to do it. Okay,
great. Looking forward to Pagnet News. Okay, so the next question ties kind of into that. What is the missing piece in order to get kind of mass adoption, mass knowledge? Do you think it's only the rewards, the developer rewards we were just talking about?
I think that's a big part of it. I think the other part is the user interface, right? So I know the developers are really interested in releasing some really smooth user interfaces. Looking at the statistics, I think the most used wallet right now is ptrader.co. There are different wallets in the ecosystem, but it's an easy web wallet, doesn't require any command line experience. It's very clear on how to do the conversions. And so there's a developer working on a desktop version of the wallet. There is a basic Android app that's now available to do the conversion. So I think after Pagnet 2.0 ships, it's all about UI. It's all about making it as simple and easy as possible for people to use it. That's got to be the next priority if you want to go mainstream.
Okay, sounds good. Good. Let me see. Next question. So, what do you think about Thorchain and Tether as competitors of Pagnet?
So, when it comes to competitors, I don't really. I mean, both are doing stuff with oracles, but again, Pagnet isn't, in the business of just providing oracles. It's using the oracles. It's consuming that data for its purposes of creating these pegged and synthetic assets, right? So I think, there's good approaches there, and there's going to be so many different decentralized oracles coming out of this. But hopefully we'll see more things like with what Pagnet is doing with Chainlink, is being able to report data from the decentralized oracles on Pagnet to Chainlink, and being able to pull data from Chainlink aggregates like 7 or 8 major data providers, and being able to take that back. So the more we can actually interconnect them, I think the more interesting it gets. So I love to see partnerships like that. And at the end of the day, it's up to the miners, it's up to the stakers. The software doesn't dictate the data source that they use. They can use some of those other services if they want. They can use pagnetmarketcap.com APIs. They can use, there's a new microservice that aggregates like 20 of the top exchanges that one of the Pagnet developers wrote, and they can use that as the data source, right? So there's a lot of freedom, and I think that's important because you don't want a central point of failure. If you have an issue with an API, the software knows to switch over to the next API. There's all these, redundant systems that make it strong.
So it could be that in the future, you're using Chainlink, for example, as well as an Oracle provider as one third one. So you have the stakers, you have the miners, and then you have Chainlink, or maybe like 3-4 others.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not monolithic. It's up to the miners and the stakers. So you could have some using Chainlink, and some using Pagnet Market Cap, and some using the microservice, which aggregates like 20 different stuff. And so the beautiful thing about that is, if any of those systems have a problem, the system just switches over to the next option, right? It's not a critical failure. because you don't want a single source of truth. You want to try to get a median across all these different data points. It also makes it really hard to attack the system. You don't know what data source people are using. It's multiple different data sources from different miners and different stakers. And it switches as soon as I compromise that one data source. Well, there's 20 others, right, that it can switch to. It makes it really tough to attack, right? It's sort of like answering the question early on. Like people are like, well, Bitcoin's really only as secure as like the amount of proof of work. So they're like, yeah, but the proof of work is growing really quickly. And okay, you do an attack and you can try to double spend something and then they're going to find out anyway. Like that doesn't make any sense. You're going to spend millions of dollars to do a small double spend. So I think as long as you align those economics correctly, you really insulate the network from attacks, right? Because it would take an enormous amount of effort and like there's not a lot they could accomplish with an attack anyway.
Yeah. So in summary, Pagnet is much more than just an Oracle provider. So that's a pretty cool thing, actually. Pretty super excited on that. Okay, and then last question. Looking at the time, we're already like talking quite a lot, but it's super interesting, and I hope it's super interesting for our users as well. So it's around the Factom protocol. Obviously, it runs on Factom protocol, and you're highly involved on Factom as well. So are you planning to push Factom as a protocol, like in the marketing sense, to be competing against like the Factom ecosystem, against the like Ethereum ecosystem, or do you want to keep it kind of like under the radar, so people should not care about which like protocol they're using? In the future, you said like probably you're going to use Ethereum, Factom, and all the others as well. Or
right. Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, Pagnet is agnostic, right? It uses each of the different services for what it's really best for. And Factom is really, really cheap. We couldn't do those tenth of a penny fees if it was only on Ethereum or only on Bitcoin or something else. And so, I think the marketing ought to be about the benefits. People don't care about the tech. People don't talk about the database that you use in the back of your app. Nobody cares if it's level DB or if it's SQL, right? So I think fundamentally, you got to move the conversation to this is cheaper, this is faster, this is more secure way to go. And that's really the fundamental advantage, not the underlying tech. And if the user interface is built correctly, people won't care, right? What they care is, does it scale? Is it affordable? Is it secure? And focus really on those features, I think, is the key. And like we talked about earlier, they're really complementary. It doesn't have to be Ethereum versus Factom any more than, programming languages should be C++ versus JavaScript. Well, they're kind of used for different things, right? And that's okay. We're going to use both of them depending on what we need to build, right? So anyway, I think, and I've always sort of preached, is, these are like programming languages. They're complementary. You use the tool that makes sense and focus on the features. That's what people care about.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much for answering all the questions, David, for taking your time for our community. And yeah, do you want to say something as some last words to our community before I say the last kind of closing word?
Sure. It's been really fun. I appreciate all the questions. It's really cool to be involved in a project that's sort of taking a fundamentally different approach. I think I always say if you want to get different results, you have to try a different approach, right? If you try the same approach, you get the same results. So moving away from the reserve and collateral based and going towards these consensus based systems, I think is what's going to work long term on a regulatory basis, on sort of an approach on the technology. That's where things ought to head. So the more we can push things in that direction, the more decentralized things can be, the less vulnerable and less, points of failure we'll have in the system. So, embrace DeFi. It's here to stay. And if you're excited about a particular asset, consider staking that asset as a pegged version on the Pagnet. So anyway, I'll stop there, but this has been a lot of fun. Happy to answer more questions in the future, and we'll put all those links in the description below.
Definitely. And if you consider to stake them, consider buy the packs on Smart Valor, of course. Whereas we have like good fiat on rails. You can buy Pagnet with credit card, with wire transfer, with USDT, in the future also with other pairs. Currently, we're also running a trading competition. It will go until the 22nd of July. Then also stay tuned on the staking. So the partnership has just begun. Thank you very much, guys, and hope to see you on other videos, on other EMA sessions, and hope to welcome David also from time to time in our community, and hopefully soon also in Switzerland. I see that you have your Swiss flag right behind you.
Of course, of course. Sounds great, Ivan. Thank you for everything. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.